What is poverty? Many think it's just being poor. However, there's much more to it. Poverty is hunger. Poverty is lack of shelter. Poverty is being sick and not being able to see a doctor. Poverty is not having access to school and not knowing how to read. Poverty is not having a job, is fear for the future, living one day at a time. The government defines poverty using the federal poverty level. This is based on the annual cash income the family earns. It is used to determine who receives federal subsidies or aid. In addition, the poverty threshold is used for statistical purposes to report how many Americans live in poverty each year. This is determined by the number of adults versus children and who the head of the household is. This is seen throughout America, even in Hamilton County. 2 families just this past week from Westfield went homeless. The question is, how does this happen?
Right now in America, more than 46 million people are living in poverty. That's the largest number in more than 50 years, more than the combined populations of all these states. Who lives in poverty, USA? Nearly 1 out of 6 Americans. Wage earners who've lost their jobs, seniors who can't afford their medicine, people in the military, families living on minimum wage, and worse yet, 1 in 5 children. What's it like living at the poverty line? How do you make ends meet? According to the U.S. government, a family of 4 is living in poverty USA if they're making less than $22,811 a year. That's $1,900 a month. Just how far will that take you? Not very far. Take housing. At the poverty line, you'll pay about $565 a month for basic shelter. How about keeping the lights on and the kids warm? Utilities, $250 a month. You'll need to get to work, to childcare, to the store. But public transportation isn't always available. A used car, gas, and maintenance runs about $345 a month. What about food? You'll average about $356 a month, or you'll go without.
People living in poverty are malnourished, uneducated, and poorly housed, if they have a home at all. Just one component of being in poverty is homelessness. Some of these conditions were shown in The Glass Castle. Jeanette Walls and her siblings were part of a family experiencing the wrath of poverty. They were very familiar with hunger and never felt the warmth that a proper home provides. In fact, there was a point in time where the children each slept in a big cardboard box, like the ones refrigerators get delivered in. Living in an unstable household during your childhood can sprout some detrimental effects. Take a look at how Maureen coped with her harsh life. She turned to drugs, alcohol, and anybody who gave her attention. Her reactions may have appeared radical to us, but it is far too common an effect of children raised in poverty. If families do have the luxury of a home, more often than not, those in poverty are forced to reside in unsafe neighborhoods purely for their cost benefits. Children that live amongst these areas are more subjected to risky behavior. This kind of behavior can be anywhere from cigarettes and sex to violence and possible interaction with gangs. With these alternative crowds, drugs and alcohol can take an everlasting hold. In addition to problems in the social category, children and teens can experience various behavioral and emotional problems. ADHD, anxiety, and depression are just a few of the disorders that can arise. Also, without the proper foods and eating habits, children can endure health problems associated with poor nutrition. This can cause stillbirth and alter the life expectancy of a child. Lastly, poverty can take one of the greatest tolls on a child's education. Many in poverty live in areas of underfunded schools. Therefore, they cannot receive the adequate attention because the school cannot provide it. However, many aren't even fortunate enough for that. Lots of teens drop out of high school in order to find work to try and help support their families. Without a high school diploma under their belt, finding a job can become increasingly difficult.
This mindset of prioritizing early work over education has become a major problem source of poverty, initiating the never-ending cycle of poverty. Without education, individuals are likely to not have a skill and therefore no job, which leads back to no money, and the process repeats. As you can see, poverty operates in a dynamic cycle, with the effects of poverty increasing the likelihood that it will be transferred between generations.
The cycle of poverty.
In economics, the cycle of poverty is
The set of events by which poverty once started is likely to continue unless there is outside intervention. Most people start out in life blessed with a handful of advantages, among them financial capital, education, good health, and community. These attributes are tenuous at best and can be lost with even a minor crisis. Take a farmer.
Hi, Farmer Joe.
Joe has a family. He wants the best for them and has always worked hard to put food on the table and a roof over their heads. Farming is the only trade Joe's ever known. Unfortunately, he injured his foot last fall and has been unable to work. His family can't afford health care, and they're slowly falling behind on their mortgage. Joe raised his kids to be hard-working and responsible, so they drop out of school to take over the farming. Joe tried to take a job in the city to make ends meet, but since he was raised on a farm himself, he was never taught the societal norms other businessmen take for granted. He slips into depression. All over the world, hard-working families like Joe's can descend into poverty in the blink of an eye. Unless they find or are given the resources to pull themselves out, the cycle often continues into subsequent generations.
Education is the brightest hope for breaking the cycle of multi-generational poverty. The Urban Institute social policy researchers found that low educational attainment was shown to predict persistent poverty more consistently than any other factor the study investigated. Those without a high school degree by age 20 are more likely to have patchy employment in young adulthood and be poor as an adult. We need to face the problem with a two-generation approach. Two-generation approaches aim to interrupt the cycle of poverty by investing in both adults and children. Helping children in school isn't likely to solve the problem of persistent poverty if parents don't get help. A key part of a successful education is working to improve family function and home environments. When parents are stable, kids are stable. We have generations of children trapped in the vicious cycle of poverty. If we don't target resources today, there will be costs and repercussions. How many more statistics do we need before we act?